And it's Ken Kreitzer for Cam. That's media, another edition of our Army football huddle. It's bowl season, and the Army Black Knights will be traveling down to Shreveport, Louisiana, to the Independence Bowl, where they will play Louisiana Tech school just about an hour away. Did not expect to be playing in this game, but got the call last Saturday as Army played in the Army Navy game, and they were offered the game, and they said yes. So they will play in the Independence Bowl against Army. Okay, in the huddle today we've got Richard Miller from Florida. How are you, Richard?
Very well, Ken. Looking forward to the game Saturday. I am enjoying this bowl season.
Very good. From Long Island, we've got Chuck Donegan. Chuck, how are you?
I'm good, Ken. How about you? And Merry Christmas to everyone.
Okay, thank you. Yes, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. And Jack Kirk in the holiday spirit with the hat. Jack, how are you from Pelham, New York?
Doing great. Happy to be here, Ken. Happy Festivus.
Okay.
For the rest of us.
Okay. And from the Beat Navy studio in Huntsville, Alabama, we have got Colonel Sam Houston from the West Point class of '87. Colonel, how are you?
I'm good. I'm actually up in the mountains of North Carolina at my parents' house tonight.
Oh.
I would like to also, as a huddle, send out our condolences to Bryson Daly and his family. Understand his grandfather died today, and
Oh, gosh.
hearts go out to you.
Oh, God.
So sorry.
Sad news for Bryson and his family. Wow.
Mm.
In the midst of a great season.
Yeah.
And so let's get going. Army will be down at the Independence Bowl on Thursday night. They have the team banquet, and I'm hoping to get there in time for that. And then on Friday, they have a press conference for the two coaches. They have a media luncheon, and then they have all sorts of festivities in downtown Shreveport. And they will have a parade with the marching bands of both schools. They said Louisiana Tech's marching band was reassembling and will be there. And I imagine the West Point band will be making the trip, and also the Cadet Spirit band. And they'll have music, fireworks, and other activities Friday night before the game, which is it 8:15, Sam? Is that Eastern time there, or is that Central in Louisiana?
I believe that's Central Time.
Okay. So they have it down as an 8:15 start. So I think I've seen it listed as 9:15 in some of the listings.
Yeah, that's Eastern Time. So 8:15 Central Time.
Okay, and that is on the big ESPN. So I'll have a big television audience. See, Army Navy game had the second biggest audience for a college football game this year with 9.4 million people watching.
Impressive.
Which is, it's a product we talked a little bit about. It's a benefit of playing it on that weekend, second weekend of December, when it's the only game, the only major college football game being played. And so it does well. It brings in, generates revenue for both schools, and generates a lot of attention and also recognition for military members. Okay, Sam, what's your thought? Looks like Louisiana Tech is excited about playing. They have a couple of players in the transfer portal, and their coach said today the one area that they're a little shorthanded is their defensive line. Of course, Army is had the news this week that Kanye Udo is winning the transfer portal, and what I've read is that he's already accepted to go to Arizona State, where he would replace a featured running back. Sam, what's your thoughts on Army's prep for the Independence Bowl?
Yeah, first I just would would like to say that it's pretty impressive what Louisiana Tech has been able to put together, given the fact that Louisiana Tech, of course, was not qualified to be in a bowl game at 5-7, and they were not designated to go to the Independence Bowl. So, background story we know is that Marshall, who originally was selected to be in the Independence Bowl and offered the invite, and who had won their conference, had accepted, but then Marshall's coach left, and many members of their team entered the transfer portal, and Marshall had to uninvite themselves from the Independence Bowl, and therefore the bowl was left with needing to fill with another team. Louisiana Tech from Ruston, which is about 60 miles away from Shreveport, and by the way, the home of some very good peaches, the Ruston peaches, that if you've ever had an opportunity to try, are delicious. Louisiana Tech was able to get the word out to their team that they'd been invited. They accepted the offer, and they've been able to mobilize their fan base and the team and all the other support apparatus to make sure that they are not only acceptance of being at the bowl game, but by all intents and purposes and appearances that they're getting ready to play a serious game against Army. And that's good, because all we've wanted for the whole time is for the bowl to be a good bowl game. We want a good game between these two teams. We're obviously rooting for Army. We want a nice, competitive, exciting game that is worthy of the Independence Bowl. And the payout for both teams is pretty impressive. And, Army earned their right to be there. And so we can already just go ahead and digest the fact that Kanye Udo, for all intents and purposes, is not in this weekend. He's not a part of the team anymore. He has committed to Arizona State through the transfer portal. Hayden Reed is now listed as number 1 on the B-back or fullback depth for the team. So we'll be seeing a lot more of Hayden Reed actually carrying the ball this coming Saturday. Louisiana Tech, to have some players that they're short on the defensive line, that's favorable for Army, obviously, and the Army running attack, that you would be having to dip into the depth chart on the Louisiana Tech side to have some players step in and have to face a running attack that the team has not seen, an offense that the team has not seen all season. So I would say that the onus for this particular game, this particular bowl game, is on Louisiana Tech. They probably had to, they went from their season being completely over to their season being able to continue with a bowl game. And not only that, to be able to continue with a bowl game with a team that brings to the table the number 1 running attack in the entire country, utilizing an offense that they never see. So it's going to be interesting to see what actually transpires on the field. But I'm looking forward to being in Shreveport. I will arrive on Friday. I will participate, or at least attend as much as I can. I will be at the West Point Society tailgate on Saturday before the game, and again, we'll try to circulate as much as I can to be able to experience as much as of the Independence Bowl events that are being put forth and available to the fans, and looking forward to a great weekend. So it's going to be a little warmer. It's going to be warmer than the Army-Navy game. There's a chance of rain. If you can believe that it would actually rain in Louisiana, there's a chance of rain on Saturday. So, bring your wet weather gear and just be ready to watch a night game, and a standalone night bowl game on a national audience, and a great game at that, and just be ready to enjoy yourselves.
Okay. Louisiana Tech, they are averaging 115 yards per game rushing, passing. They're averaging 228 yards game. So it's a pass dominant offense. Got 18 touchdowns passing, 14 rushing. So they can score some points. Averaging 22 points a game. So will we see which of their players they listed when I last looked at their transfer portal. They had over 20 players on the transfer portal list, and so they're going to be a little bit shorthanded. But they have, we'll see what they can put together. It's just good that they're able to play, and
Yeah.
Army's going to have to reassemble. They are arriving in Shreveport on Christmas Eve, and I'm not sure if they'll practice later that day. But they'll have Wednesday and Thursday essentially, and a walkthrough Friday to get set. They practiced at West Point last week while exams were going on, and it was good to see a couple of players graduated. Connor Finucane graduated, and Hamilton Baker, a linebacker, graduated on Friday. And my understanding is that Connor Finucane is going to try out for the NFL and take a shot at that before starting his Army career. But so this will be, he'll be. I have to check. I was told that he wasn't commissioning right away, and we'll double check on that. So I don't know if he's going to play as a second lieutenant. We used to see that happen a lot with the baseball players who would go to the NCAA tournament.
My understanding is that he commissioned because there is a tweet by Coach Monken that shows him in his commissioning ceremony.
Well, maybe I was told by somebody in the athletic department that, and maybe it was incorrect. So I apologize if it's incorrect. Connor Finucane's had a tremendous career at West.
Yeah, and him playing as a second lieutenant is not unheard of. I mean, there have been bowl games in the Monken era where players have suited up and played as second lieutenants. I think Christian Anderson, for example, in the Armed Forces Bowl in 2021 was a second lieutenant when he played. So this is something that happens at the academy, and that is sometimes you have cadets who graduate. You have summer graduates. You have the standard graduation in May. You have summer graduates. You have December graduates. So this is a regular cycle that is not specific to cadets who are in a varsity athletic program. It really has everything to do with how they're academically aligned and what credits and courses they need to complete in order to meet the obligations of their degree that allows them to both graduate and commission. And so, congratulations to them for graduating. And where Connor Finucane is concerned, this is a guy who thought he was going to graduate in, last May. Then he was unable to graduate in May. Then it was a last minute decision that allowed him to fulfill his final season of eligibility. And so he had lost a lot of weight last spring in preparation for commissioning. And when he started this season, he started the season about 20 or 30 pounds underweight of what he was when he finished the season last year. And he's slowly gained back that weight and muscle, and he's playing at top form right now. So if he's going to participate in some of the NFL rookie camps, he's definitely at the right time to do that. And so we wish him the best. I think he has the record for most games. I'm not sure if he does, but he may have the record now for the most games played by an Army football player. But he's definitely been an amazing member of the Brotherhood who has selflessly sacrificed himself on the football field over and over and over again. And he was a team captain last year, and he acted like a team captain this year. So his leadership has definitely been been a very important part and catalyst of the success of the Army offense this season.
Well, I did find the tweet that you mentioned, Sam, from Coach Monk, and proud to see Connor Finucane commissioned as second lieutenant in U.S. Army. So our congratulations, Connor, in his new second lieutenant uniform and being sworn in, and all that on Friday at West Point. Okay, so what do you see are the keys for Army, Sam? Is the question now whether Bryson Daly's going to play?
I don't think that's a question. I know that there was a death in the family, but I don't see that being that Bryson Daly's not going to play. It just means that he and his family are certainly they need our thoughts and prayers right now. But I would imagine that, much like, say, for instance, when Brett Favre's dad passed away, the very next night he was out setting up record numbers on a Monday Night Football game in the NFL, So I would imagine, if anything, this would be a motivator to Bryson to come out and just do something record breaking, in honor of his grandfather. But the keys, as I see it, to the Independence Bowl are very simple. On offense, don't turn the ball over. Don't commit stupid penalties. Sustain long, time-consuming drives that are topped with touchdowns every single time. Always score a touchdown in the red zone. On defense, stop the run first, as always, and force the other team into pass situations where they're desperate and playing from behind, where they make mistakes. These have always been the keys to the Army football game this season. My only, once again, my only ask is the same ask that I had before the Army-Navy game, and that is, I expressed concern that the Army offense had slowly compressed into a one-dimensional offense this year. It started the season a very three-dimensional true triple option offense with excellent ball distribution. Noah Short was getting the ball to the outside a lot. This was softening up the defenses. It was mixed with a good level of play action passing that was keeping defenses honest, and it was opening up the middle that allowed for the inside runs by then Kanye Udo and now, of course, this week, Hayden Reed. And Jake Rendina. So it's important this Saturday but the offense that we saw at the beginning of the season has slowly become a Bryson Daly centric offense. And it's time to open the playbook back up. It's time to start distributing the ball, utilizing the plays that are available, unveil some new plays, use some misdirection, use counter, use trap, but get the ball in distribution and in space to all of your playmakers, because Army has got, even without Kanye Udo, Army football, Army offense right now has the best collection of playmakers they've had in their backfield in a while. And they need to be used. They need to be utilized. And they've got the best line that they have had in the Monken era, the best offensive line. And the awards, both individual and as a unit, speak for themselves. So go ahead and put it on display this Saturday. And then on defense again, one of the biggest defensive strategies against any team Army plays is time of possession. If that offense is dominating time of possession, that means that the Army defense is on the sideline resting. It also means that the opposing offense is not on the field. You can't score when your offense isn't on the field. And when your defense comes out fresh and the offense comes out cold and the offense is trying to play from behind, and there's a clock in the opposing offense's head that they realize that because Army's controlling the clock, they only have so many possessions for the rest of the game. They're going to try something desperate, and it's going to lead to mistakes. It's going to lead to turnovers, and it's going to give the Army the ball back. This is the Army strategy. It's been the Army strategy all season. It needs to be the strategy this weekend. And the only question mark coming into the game, really, and preparing for the game, is the fact that you can watch all the film you want about Louisiana Tech this season, but because of their transfer portal situation, you can't scout individual players. If they're in the transfer portal, they're not going to be on the field. And therefore, you've got to really scramble to find out what the strengths and weaknesses are, the players who are filling in for players that are in the portal. So that's going to be the mystery. But honestly, I think that's going to be an easy fix for Army football if they play their game this Saturday.
Okay, well, the Louisiana Tech top quarterback is Even Bullock, who's 6'5", 212, a freshman. Had a strong season, threw for 1,938 yards, 7.1 per completion, 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So I just check his running stats. So they're a passing team, Sam. So Army's going to get tested on pass defense, trying to get a pass rush, and just keeping the game in front of them. And they've played some good young quarterbacks before this year and done, for the most part, pretty well. Evan Bullock's quarterback rating, 37.1, is not great. But it'll be interesting how with, not a lot of practice time, not a lot of time, even as you said, to watch the film and check who they might be playing as far as individual players. But they've prepared for a lot of games this year and we'll be ready for Saturday. Okay, well, let's go around the huddle and talk about some of the other the college football playoff and some of the bowl games. And let's see, Richard, what are you going to take us through? You're going to go through the results of the bowl games. All 4 home teams won.
Yes, all 4 home teams. It was really home field advantage. Notre Dame defeated Indiana at Notre Dame Stadium 27-17. Penn State defeated SMU 38-10. Texas over Clemson 38-24. And also is Ohio State 42-17 over Tennessee.
Very good. So no real surprises. I watched a little bit of the Notre Dame game. They seem to keep that game in control. Sam, anything stand out to you?
Nope. Called all 4 games last week in the huddle. I told you who was going to win. And there's not one of the games that happened that was even close. With every game that is mentioned, the score in every single game is closer than the game actually was. If you were actually watching it, Notre Dame, Indiana game, Indiana scored. I think they scored twice in the last couple of minutes of the game. They scored a touchdown and they recovered an onside kick and they managed to get back in the end zone again. Otherwise, that game was just a complete blowout. Notre Dame dominated. Ohio State, I knew there was no way that Tennessee was going to roll into the horseshoe and have any chance. The way Tennessee has played, Tennessee has been a tale of 2 different teams this year. They started the season like gangbusters, and then they became very average and pedestrian for the remainder of the season. And they played like it against Ohio State. SMU, I think SMU was just still punch drunk from the the ACC championship game. They played like it. And they literally got blown out. And the Texas Clemson game, another game that was much closer in the final score than the game actually was. Texas was literally dominating this game at halftime. They took the foot off the pedal a little bit in the second half and let Clemson kind of make it seem like they were in the game, but they really weren't. They never were. So the real question mark is, and already going all over the sports pundits talking about it, the talking heads, is that the college football playoff selection committee, did they get it right? Did they? Because so far, the body of work of the selection committee is 4 games that were complete blowouts, and it questions whether or not maybe there was another team that could have been invited that could have performed better. I'm not naming any teams. I'm just repeating what I've heard. And it's a legitimate question. So we've already run in. We haven't even gotten through the first college football playoff in FBS football, and we are already at the dilemma of what is the selection criteria. Do we select teams that are sexy, who won their conference and get them in there, or do we select the teams that we know from the combination of strength of schedule and strength of roster and their pedigree have the best opportunity to actually give a competitive game when they have the opportunity to line up against somebody else? So I don't know. I don't know the answer to this. All I know is that so far college football playoff has been a joke.
Sam, I think it's also just another example of Army, Army getting snubbed. I really think if Army plays one of those other teams, maybe the game may not be as much of a blowout.
I would like to think you're right, Richard, but if Army had been in the college football playoff, I just want to throw this out there. I mean, that's a good point. I appreciate that. When Army played Navy last Saturday, Army had no gas left in the tank. It was obvious. After the pounding they took on the field at Yankee Stadium against Notre Dame, and then the absolute punch fest they had against UTSA, and then the AAC championship game against a very good Tulane game. I'm talking about a Tulane game with Mensa and other players that didn't exit for the portal. Then they had to play Navy. If they had to line up again this past Saturday, I don't know. It might have been brutal. This Army team had reached a point where they were exhausted and they were beat up. So I'm thankful that they were not in the college football playoff. The only scenario that I would have said that, okay, I would agree with you on is that if Army had managed to go undefeated this year and they had a bye week and they had a week to rest before they actually played their college football playoff game, which would have been this coming Saturday. Otherwise, I really believe that Army was in a complete they had hit a brick wall at this point of their season, and they would have not been ready to play any of the teams in the college football playoff, even the ones that got blown out.
Yeah, I mean, even talking to some of the Army coaches informally, they said they were not quite the same team that they were earlier in the season. Yeah, playing those three games consecutively. But as Coach Monken said, they're going to be Army soldiers, and you don't know what the schedule is of what battles you're going to have to fight. And but they did seem to reach a point where they were not as dominant on their offensive line, defensive line as they'd been earlier in the season. I was just looking at Louisiana Tech in the transfer portal, and they have 3 defensive linemen in the portal, including one the coach had talked about, David Blay, who had 45 tackles and 6 sacks, who's the team sack leader. And the coach didn't expect him to play. Also, Kells Bush, who was further down, he had 11 tackles on the season, and Adam Lamar, who I haven't seen on the listing. They're also their number 2 quarterback who's in the transfer portal, Turner. But he had got 40 pass completions this year.
And Jack Turner.
What's that?
Jack Turner.
Yeah. But most of their play at quarterback was by Evan Bullock this year, a freshman. 6'5", 212, big guy. And he had 1,938 yards passing, 14 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So Army's going to get to play some pass defense on Saturday. And hopefully they can get some pass rush. They've had some injuries on the defensive line themselves. Okay, Chuck Donegan, what do you got for us?
Well, And quite a few bowl games over the past few days. In fact, as we were streaming last week, the Frisco Bowl was underway between West Virginia and Memphis. Close contest, but ended with a 42-37 Memphis victory. And then on Friday, we had the Gasparilla Bowl between Florida, Tulane. Wow, Florida really blew Tulane out of the water on that one, I'd say, with a 33-8 victory. And today, Central Carolina, UTSA faced off for the Myrtle Beach Bowl, ended with a 44-15 UTSA triumph.
Okay, good win for Texas San Antonio. What was the game in Boise this year? I guess it's the
That was the
Potato Bowl.
that was the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, and that was today. That
Oh,
was Fresno State versus Northern Illinois, and it went into double overtime. It actually was one of the better bowl games that I have seen this bowl season. It went into double overtime.
wow.
Northern Illinois on the very first play of the second overtime ran a trick play halfback pass for a touchdown, and then went for 2 points and ran practically the same trick play halfback pass for a 2-point conversion, and then stuffed Fresno State on their possession to win the game. It was nice job.
Okay. Very good. And Jack, what do you have today?
Well, we got some fun bowl games coming up. Tomorrow, Christmas Eve, we got the Hawaii Bowl.
Yay.
That is South Florida versus San Jose State. Of course, San Jose State. That's a good game there.
Yeah, we know who the coach of San Jose State is, don't we, Jack?
Is that Kenya Matalolo?
Right.
Yep.
So we got a chance to go home, but for South Florida, that's a long trip
Yeah.
to go from one warm, when you're already in a warm weather climate. I hope they enjoy the trip. I'm sure they will.
Coming up on Thursday, day after Christmas, you have the Game Above Sports Bowl. That's Pitt versus Toledo. And that's in Detroit. And the Rate Bowl, that's Rutgers versus Kansas State. That's at Chase Field in Phoenix, Arizona. Then you got the 68 Ventures Bowl, Arkansas State versus Bowling Green. That's in Mobile, Alabama. The Armed Forces Bowl, Navy versus Oklahoma. That should be a fun game. Oklahoma 3-point favorites in that game. So it could be a close one. But that's down in Fort Worth, Texas. And we have Birmingham Bowl. That's Georgia Tech versus Vanderbilt in Birmingham, Alabama. The Liberty Bowl, Arkansas versus Texas Tech. That's in Memphis, Tennessee. The Holiday Bowl, Syracuse versus Washington State. And that game is in San Diego Snapdragon Stadium. Then out in Las Vegas Bowl, USC and Texas A&M at Allegiant Stadium there. Saturday, a couple of big bowl games if you're a Red Sox or a Yankees fan. You got the Fenway Bowl up at Fenway Park, UConn versus North Carolina up there in Boston. And then in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium, the Pinstripe Bowl, Boston College versus Nebraska, Eagles and Cornhuskers there. That should be a fun one.
That'll be an interesting game. It should draw a lot of Boston College fans to the game, and also Nebraska folks coming in. Remember one time Nebraska played at the Meadowlands Stadium, and they drew a huge crowd. I think they were playing Notre Dame in that game. Like in a Labor Day weekend game. Okay, and do we want to preview the 4 college football games coming up on New Year's Day, or we save that one for next week? Well, why don't we go through what are the games, Richard? Why don't you take us through what are the 4 games?
The four games for the college football on New Year's Day. The games coming up on New Year's Day will be. Let's see if I can get it up here. You've got the All-State Sugar Bowl. Well, first you've got the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. That's a 1:00 start. Texas and Arizona State, followed by the Rose Bowl game, Ohio State and Oregon, number 8 against number 1. All-State Sugar Bowl will be Notre Dame number 7, and number 2 Georgia in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Very good. So we got all four games covered for college football playoff. Okay. Sam, any other thoughts about Army versus Louisiana Tech? It's
and Ken, hold on. The other college football playoff game will be Penn State and Boise State in the Verbo Fiesta Bowl. That will be on New Year's Eve.
okay. So the Penn State fans will get to go out to Arizona for a bowl game. I think that's sort of like one of the questions, and we know what the answer is for college basketball. That teams fans travel, and they'll travel 3 weekends in a row if need be. But there, it's only about 10,000 tickets. We'll have to see how many Penn State fans make that trip, thinking that they might be playing, beyond that game, with 2 more games beyond that. Sam, do you think that's a question? When you look at college football, it was always predicated that you could get your fan base to travel 1 game on New Year's Day or New Year's weekend. Now you're asking teams, fan bases to travel multiple times, perhaps 3 weekends in a row. Do you see that as something that the fans will just say, "Oh, wow, this is great. We'll travel 3 weekends to get to the championship game"?
Well, I mean, think of it this way, Ken. In the first 4 games of the college football playoff, all 4 home teams won. So no one traveled anywhere. So when they play this weekend, or when they play on New Year's, the next 4 games, then, that's the first time that anybody traveled. So I don't think that, like Penn State, let's use Penn State, for example. Hey, Penn State fans are rabid, number 1. Number 2, Penn State fans are hungry because it's been a long time since Penn State was a national champion. And I honestly, I think that stadium is going to be, I think that stadium is going to be sold out, and it's going to be at least 50% Penn State fans that both traveled and lived closer and are just grads who live closer to the stadium and were able to get tickets to go. So I don't think it's any concern at all for any of these teams. And again, none of the fans had to travel for the first round, and their home teams all won. So they're good to go. On the bowl front, I will say, just from a personal perspective, not so much on the college football playoff realm, but where it comes to the American Athletic Conference, I saw somebody post earlier today about how, as now that Army's in the AAC, respectfully, we can't root for any other AAC teams in bowl games. I disagree with that completely. As a matter of fact, I'm pulling for all the AAC teams in their bowl games. And why would that be? Because moving forward, if Army is going to be a member, a reigning champion of the American Athletic Conference, it really does benefit Army for the American Athletic Conference to do well when their teams are in bowl games, because it reflects on the strength of the actual league. And it also helps in the final rankings. When the final college football rankings come out, I'm going to tell you something. It's beneficial that Army beat UTSA, for example, because UTSA won their bowl game today in a blowout. And even though Army did not play South Alabama or South Florida, I'm still rooting for South Florida when they go out to Hawaii, because they're an AAC team, and I would like to see the AAC teams win. On Friday, as hard as it is for you to probably believe me saying this, and as difficult it is for me to say it, I've got to say, I think Navy's gonna roll Oklahoma. I really do. And I have to look at this strategically. And the strategic thought is when Navy rolls Oklahoma, it looks good on Army. It looks good for Army. So, I want Army to finish this season with 12 wins. The AAC championship is too late for the Commander-in-Chief trophy, but they can still get a national ranking at the end of the season. So the more AAC teams that win, the better. And go American Athletic Conference.
Well, it could be that Navy moves up into the.
They might, because that would mean that Navy finishes with 10 wins.
Well, we'll see if they get a win over Oklahoma. It certainly helps their chances. And yeah, it is good for the American Conference teams to do well, who are in bowl games, and raises the conference's profile and its prestige. So that would be a positive. So we're gonna go do our lightning round for Army versus Louisiana Tech. I think it's a game that's really hard to predict. But let's start with Richard. Richard, what do you think?
I would actually prefer to go I want to go last, Ken.
You want to go last? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Who wants to go first? Chuck, do you want to go first?
Sure, Ken. Yeah, I think I agree with you. This is going to be a very unpredictable game, going either way. But if I had to make a prediction, I'd say the final will be, I think, 42-21 Army.
42-21?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll go to Jack McGurk.
Alrighty. This one, yeah, I think I like Army in this game as well. I looked at the odds. Army is 17.5-point favorites.
17.5 points has gone way up.
Yeah.
First looked at it.
So I like Army. I think I'm going to say 35-21 Army in this one. And one other bowl game I wanted to mention before was the coming up on Saturday, the Military Bowl, which is NC State versus Eastern Carolina. That game at the Naval Academy. So that should be an interesting one.
Another American Conference team in East Carolina playing. And okay, so 35-21 for Jack. Richard's wants to go last today, so we'll go to Sam Houston. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, first I'm going to say, Jack, thanks for mentioning the Military Bowl, and it just reminded me. So it appears that we have survived the coaching carousel this year, which is good. More continuity for the Army team. We did lose Drinkall and a couple of other assistant coaches, but it looks like Monken's going to stay another year. But Jack, the reason I appreciate the fact that you mentioned the Military Bowl is because NC State. Keep an eye on NC State next season. Their coach is on the bubble. And guess who their athletic director is? Boo Corrigan. And where was Boo Corrigan before he went to be the athletic director at NC State? He was the athletic director at West Point. He was the athletic director who hired Jeff Monken. So, that being said, I'm not trying to be a soothsayer here or Nostradamus, but if I was to put my finger on one team that I would be concerned about before next season even starts, when it's time for coaching carousel again, it would be the North Carolina State Wolfpack. Now, that being said, I got to say, I'm looking forward to this game. And, the Independence Bowl, this is the first time Army's been in the Independence Bowl since 1996. Army was supposed to go to the Independence Bowl in 2020, and it canceled because of COVID. And Army ended up going to the Liberty Bowl instead.
That was the year that UCLA didn't want to play.
Yep. And so the Independence Bowl canceled, and Tennessee had been invited to go to the Liberty Bowl, and they backed out. And so Liberty Bowl invited Army, and Army went to Liberty Bowl instead. So the only time Army's played in the Independence Bowl was in 1996, and I was at that game. That was the Ronnie McKady year. And it was an outstanding game against Auburn University. Unfortunately, came down to a field goal at the end to tie the game and put it in overtime, and Army missed the field goal. But this is very poignant because I've often compared Bryson Daly to Ronnie Makeda. They were two generational quarterbacks for Army. They really were, both of them. I think that given 2 weeks of rest coming off of the Army-Navy game, they got the term exams behind them. They've had a chance to refocus. They're in the Christmas spirit. Army's angry about what happened at the Army-Navy game. They're going to play to win, and they're going to play to win with a vengeance. They're going to play to show that what happened at the Army-Navy game was an anomaly. And I feel sorry for Louisiana Tech. I really do. I'm glad Louisiana Tech's going to play, but I just don't think this game is going to be even close. And I don't even think that it's even going to have a moment that's scary. So my prediction for the game is Army 57, Louisiana Tech 17.
57-17 sounds a little bit like the bowl game win over Houston in the Armed Forces Bowl.
Yeah.
What was that, 2018?
Often has crossed my mind.
Yeah. Got the coach of Houston fired. And
There's a lot of coaches that have been fired because of Jeff Monken.
Well, yeah, it's unfortunate. But dominant win. I think Army takes the bowl games more seriously than some of the other teams do. Witness Missouri and certainly Houston that occasion. Okay, so I think it's going to be a game where Army's going to score a bunch of points. They don't have Kanye Udo, but they've got other backs, and it's going to be Bryson Daly's last game, so I think he's going to get quite a chance. The defense is going to be tested by Louisiana Tech's passing game, and I think they'll fare well. So I'm going to go with I think I like Jack's score, 35-21. So I'm going to go 37 to 17. So I'm giving myself some upside room and a little bit of defense, a little room on defense. Okay. And now we're going to go to the seer, Richard Miller.
I'm going to go 52 to 17. Army is going to put a statement on. They are going to wipe the floor in this game and finish the season on a huge win, crushing Louisiana Tech, making them about as weak as they came into this game strong. They are going to be weak by the end of this game. I'm talking about Louisiana Tech, 52-17.
52-17. Okay, so a lot. Sam and Richard both think Army's going to score over 50 points, and three of us think it's going to be 17 points scored by Louisiana Tech, and Chuck and Jack think 21 points. In all cases, an Army victory, which would cap a season at 12-2, one of their most successful in their 125 some odd years of playing football at West Point. First time they've ever won 12 games. It'll be the first time, and they've already won their first conference championship. And they'd bring home 2 trophies on the season, which is really what college sports should be about: bring home a trophy.
Yeah, I would like to mention this is something that might have gone past a few people, but Air Force Academy has been in the Mountain West for many years, and prior to that, they were in the Western Athletic Conference. Air Force Academy has never won a conference championship all those years.
Wow.
Navy has been in the AAC since 2015. They've never won the AAC. Army has been in the AAC for 1 year. They won the AAC conference championship.
And very proudly with the final two wins of the season against Texas San Antonio at home, and then very memorable Friday night at Mikey Stadium. A little cold, but Army pulled out a sizable win over Tulane, and won their first conference championship. First time that that's ever been done at West Point. And so, Sam, you're sure about that? The Air Force has never won a championship of one of the conferences they've been in.
I'm positive they've never
Okay.
won their conference championship.
Okay.
Air Force actually, they also just lost a linebacker to the transfer portal, David Santiago. He's heading up to Michigan State.
Okay.
So, yep. Even in the Fisher DeBerry years, Army Air Force was dominant in the Commander in Chief Trophy for a long time under Fisher DeBerry, who was the coach prior to Troy Calhoun, and they were Western Athletic, and then the Western Athletic Conference reconstituted as the Mountain West Conference, and in all of that time, Air Force has fielded a lot of really good teams, but they never won a conference championship.
What?
They played in the conference championship, they just never won it. And Navy played in the American Athletic Conference Championship once, and they got beat. And we know about that. That was in 2016.
Sam, you said they never won a conference title. I just looked on the Wikipedia. It says 3 conference titles and three division titles. Never won a conference title. They won 3.
Okay. Well, Richard, check which league they were in at the time. If you want to check on that, maybe we'll look at it for next week.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll do it next week. Okay.
Yep.
But so it's night before Christmas Eve as we do our recording. And just want to thank everybody. Thank our team here for joining us week in and week out through a long college football season. Started the week before Labor Day, and now is going all the way to as we approach Christmas and New Year's. It's been a memorable season. 11 wins so far, and a chance for 12. Louisiana Tech's going to have something to say about it. And so we go around just to some final thoughts on the season. Chuck, you joined us this year. What was your thought?
Well, I think it's truly been one for the ages, Ken. I mean, just the playing, the win record, it's just unparalleled by the Black Knights. No doubt, thanks to not only solid playing, but the extremely talented leadership of their coach, Jeff Monken, and very proud to have been associated. Yep, the Army Football Huddle, CamVets Media coverage. I think it's been a great season, and I look forward to what the next one has in store.
Okay, thanks, Chuck. You've done a lot of major contributions this year. And Jack McGurk, what's your thought?
I think it's been a great season for Army, aside from, of course, the loss in the Army-Navy game. But and if they win in the Independence Bowl, will be their 12th win of the season. I think it's maybe the first time in the school's history that they would have a 12-win season if they.
It is, yeah, it would be. Okay, and Jack, thank you for your contributions tracking Navy during the year. And our producer director, Richard Miller, what's your thought, Richard?
My thought is this: since we started this huddle, I think this is the best season Army had in the year. Let's see, 21, 22, 23. In the 5 years we've been doing this huddle, this season I think has been the best season record wise since we've started this huddle. I think they've been able to pick themselves up after a loss, which was the game against a Notre Dame. But I think overall this has been like the best team we've seen so far record wise since we started this huddle.
Okay, I would agree. And Sam, what's your thought?
Probably the best thing about this season is when we go back to the beginning of the season and we were talking about what to expect with this team and what might transpire. We all believed that there was the makings of something great, but we didn't want to make a prediction about what the season would be. And every week, this team has just been surprising us with how good they are. And at each moment of a surprise, the next layer that you would peel of the onion was to see how much better they could be from the win the previous week. And so none of us expected Army to be as good as they were this year. None of us. None of us predicted it. I know even I early on, after the first 2 or 3 games of the season in this very huddle, I said, I can't put my finger on it. This team has something special. I don't want to predict how the rest of the season is going to go, but there's something magical going on with this team. And, it is unfortunate that the stars aligned in the way that they did with regards to the Commander in Chief trophy. That is the only asterisk to be put upon this team because when they win the bowl game, they will go down as the winningest team in a season for Monken, the winningest team in a season for the modern era of Army football, and the winningest team in the history of the long storied history of Army football, which is another history moment. First time first time that they've won a conference championship, most wins in a season. But then if you just go back and you look at little things about this team, you look at the individual player and awards, unit awards that the team has won. Army had their first All-American lineman in a while this year. They had the best offensive line in the country, according to the Joe Moore Award. Jeff Monken won the ECAC NC or FBS Football Coach of the Year. I think Bryson Daly is a finalist for the Earl Campbell Award. I don't think that one's been announced yet. Daly was number 6 in the Heisman voting. And we could just go on and on. You just look at the AAC all conference players that Army had. I think Army had 5 players on first team all conference for the AAC. So this has been an absolutely amazing season. And considering the fact that Army has come off of back-to-back 6-6 seasons, it's been one of the funnest teams to watch, one of the most exciting seasons week to week. I think we all just could not wait for the next game. It's hard to believe that we've come down to the last game of this season. And personally, I think that my prediction for the bowl game is a conservative estimate on what Army's going to put up because I believe in the second half we're going to see a lot of the future of Army football out on the field play in because the starters are going to be on the sideline. So, all I can say is thank you for an amazing season, Army football, and we underestimated you all year long. You've shown us what heights you can really be reaching as a team. And you've demonstrated once again the genius of Jeff Monken and his coaching staff for being able to get the best out of the talent pool that they have that represents a service academy in a major conference of college football and to be able to be consistently in the rankings of college football rankings for at least half of the season long. And don't even forget that Army was the last team this season that had never trailed in a football game. So literally, we could write novels about what this team has done. And we can just put in the footnotes of what it could have been had it not been for just a couple of games. But notwithstanding, I think head to head with the 2018 team or the 2017 team, it would be close. But I really think that both teams fresh. I think that the 2024 Army football team is the best all-around football team that has been fielded in the Monken era.
Okay, so you think it's better than the 2018 team?
I do. I do. I think head to head, with both teams completely healthy and rested, and they go at it for 60 minutes, I think the 2024 team prevails for sure.
Okay. Okay. Well, I just think on the season, we didn't know how good this team might be going into the season. There were a lot of unknowns, especially going into a new conference, a lot of opponents that Army hadn't played before or not in a long time. And um, and there was a little concern over a number of graduates who were in the defensive backfield. But I think the safeties played really well this year. Casey Larkin and Maxi Domenico, and the cornerbacks, Donovan Plott and Jaden Mays, and a few others really played well. And Ella Mendoza, the linebacker, had a big season. And of course, the two inside linebackers, Caleb Fordner um, uh, and Andon Thomas, have had a tremendous season, leading both 1 and 2 in tackles for the team. And then the offensive line, as you spoke of, you've all spoken of, one of best offensive line of the year, and being able to stay healthy. Basically, the same 5 players played all year, and having somebody of Connor Finucane's experience to be able to go in and play right tackle, and of course Brady Small at center, sophomore, and then Bryson Daly having one of the best years of a quarterback for Army in decades. 29 touchdowns, basically a fullback, in my opinion, playing quarterback. And held up, was injured for 1 game, but came back and, was in the Heisman consideration, got the 6th most votes in the Heisman. First time an Army player has been in that award program consideration in several decades. So a lot of very strong positives this year for the team, and got one more game to try to go for 12 wins, which would be a record, and again, be a nice finish to the season. And I think Army will play well down in Louisiana and come away with a bowl win, but they got to kick the ball and play, and it should be fun to watch on Saturday night. Okay, well, I just want to say thank you to our friends at the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, who provide scholarships and mentoring to families who have lost someone in military service in the special operations community. And thank you guys for joining us each week. And we'll be down in Shreveport on Saturday night for a lot of the pregame activity, and then the Independence Bowl against Louisiana Tech. So looking forward to that. Okay, and just want to wish everybody here and watching a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, especially to anyone in the military serving overseas or maybe serving away from home at a base where they cannot travel home for the Christmas weekend. We're thinking of you and say thank you for your service to our country. So, any final thoughts?
Go Army.
Okay, that's a good final thought. Okay, have a good evening. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and thanks for watching.